Welcome. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Ted again.
Yeah.
It has been 2 years since the last interview I did with you. We had an interview in April. I just looked it up before this. In April, 24th of April in 23. We had the next interview on 14th of May in 23. And if you guys remember, Ted, we in the first interview we talked about the toxic starting point, about having that foundational understanding of being the aggressive bully and where you come from and your entire life story. And we talked about all of that. And then you took an absolutely deep dive into resolving all of that. And we did the second interview that was called Frank Enlightenment. And I must say, in those 2 years, still up until like last week or something like that, people are still commenting,
Mm.
people are still liking, people really, really enjoy that conversation because you have this very, very open-hearted and honesty about you when you talk about your experience. And so many things have passed, and we thought it was time to make an update on what is going on in your life. Obviously, I'm super curious to hear from when we left off with the Frank Enlightenment, where it was vomiting and diarrhea and it was downward spiral. And it was really, really difficult. And then to where you're now, where you have your own YouTube channel, the Tao of Bees, and where you very, very again honestly talk about your awakening path and how it is to be you. And what I really
Mm.
prefer, what I really appreciate about your YouTube channel is that just like you are, it's very honest and very open-hearted and very down to earth and very
Super
understand,
authentic.
yeah, and understandable and reachable. And it's just so wonderful. I really like your channel. So thank you for being here. And may I introduce my husband, Todd?
Hello.
On a side note.
None of us have ever met
Yeah,
before.
yeah. No,
We
yeah, for context, we're
It's
all pals.
all the other
So,
people that are sitting and watching, not just you two.
who's never seen us together?
Yeah, but you don't know. I
yeah, I
just
don't
thought it was
ever,
so
I
rude not,
rarely,
not introducing you, but
Like,
here we go.
well, that's
hi,
nice. I
everyone.
mean, I rarely see you guys separately in videos anymore. So yeah, it's
Basically
you guys are
conjoined
like
twins at this point.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Ew, gross, cooties. So I don't know where to start, which is, I think, the best place to start. What I will say, and have started saying this at the beginning of my videos, just to really set a tone that, and it's very, really, really clearly evident to me. Anything I'm going to share is a perspective. It's
Mm,
absolutely a perspective. I think that gets lost in the grand melee of what's out there.
Yeah.
And there's a
absolutely.
lot of, I became really hypersensitive to, there's a lot of absolute type of statements,
Yep.
which I think are super, super misleading. So I open up with, this is a perspective based on the causes and conditions of the personality that's
Yes.
here.
Yes.
And if it's not, if it's, so that which I just call the personality now, if it's not applicable, then throw it out, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my opening shot right there.
Love
Um,
that.
I really love that because it's so on point that I can only tell and share how it is, how life is experienced and perceived from this bubble of reality, which also
mhm.
what we keep saying, that there is no truth. There is nothing out there that we can say this is the truth and I know the truth. I only know what is true to me in this moment right now.
Yeah.
Give me a brain
Right.
injury, give me,
So,
dementia, give me psychedelics, and
or just even some new information,
yes.
some new momentary insight where suddenly something looks different and it just throws everything into disarray.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love like I completely agree that there is so much f- false sense of certainty
Mm.
that gets proposed, and I think
Mm,
it's so important to address all of this with humility and recognize like we're biological creatures. We're just, apes walking around on the planet. How much do we actually think that we know? And then take into consideration it is just this open experience that is, ever changing and new every moment. The there's so much hubris to think that, I know the ultimate nature of
Mm.
reality, and I can tell you that.
Hmm.
In three steps,
In
we
three
can now.
steps. Yeah, it's absurd.
Um, yeah. And with the personality here, I mean, again, my personality's been shaped by, um, uh, in some aspects, things like when you're on a prison yard or something, subterfuge and bullshit is spotted immediately
Mm,
because everyone's a con artist in there. So there's a lot of very plain, very very direct speaking, and also there was, for me, has always been, at least what seemed like, a really sincere, like, I really need to know what this is. This is search for the truth with a capital T.
yeah.
And then the little dabble of cynicism too, because I kept not finding it. But if I come across something where if someone is going, this is it, and
Yeah.
this is not directed at anybody specifically or personally, but just sort of a sense or a feel that's out there, my first response is, I don't know. And then the longer you will listen to somebody share about it, although you do see the innocence in it, like you had mentioned the other day in one of our voice messages. Also, I'm like, I don't think that's how that works, you know. And it can be at least it was harmful here because you try to grab onto any of these things and
Mm,
go, oh, okay, well, I'm God,
Yeah.
or I am nothing. And any one of those is like a really a massive forming of conclusions,
Yeah, exactly.
and every time and I did that and repetitively grabbed onto conclusions, which seemed like endlessly,
Mm,
you know, just because that lack of um, that doubt, that lack of certainty, that whole validation, not feeling good enough, which is very inherent to the personality here, right? Of if I were to able to form a conclusion, not only would it equate to enlightenment, but it would also say on a more subtle level, I figured it out, I got
mm,
it, I'm worthy.
yeah.
Look what I have,
mm,
Yeah.
And I think in our earlier videos, I did talk about wandering around after having either openings or small shifts or a little bit more clarity, walking around and just proselytizing to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I think in a few videos, I've really sort of attacked it in a really lighthearted way, but I've really gone after it a little bit of like, it, why are you doing this? And it feels like a very gentle, like a challenge. I'm just like, are you sure? Are you sure? I don't know. Don't stop there.
yeah,
Don't
yeah,
set up camp right there.
yeah.
Even though it doesn't take away the validity from whatever aha moment you might have,
No.
or whatever flash or insight or reduction in the identity.
Yep.
There or increased clarity. You go, okay, but like if you stop there, then the whole game stops, and then
Yeah,
you're just
exactly.
static again.
Mm,
Exactly. I think what we try to point to the most is that it's constantly calling for just a lifestyle of inquiry, a lifestyle of just being open to challenging and questioning what's here at any point. And
Mm,
anytime you feel like you've locked into some certainty, you're in a trap. You're back into the mind.
mm,
We can either be in that like completely open space where no conclusions are possible because we're not thinking, which is just that
hmm
absolute moment of freedom. Or as soon as we like engage with having a point of view, we have to recognize the mind is back online.
mm,
This is the ego, that sort of a sense of needing to know that has come back online and is creating this reality that we now think is the truth in some way. And like we've been on this little kick of getting into like well long story, but but the idea of like Nagarjuna talking about that, you have this like there are teachings of like some things are true, some things are absolutely not true, some things are both true and not true, and some things are neither true nor untrue. And what I really
hmm
love is that the idea is we ultimately want to get to that kind of understanding that things are neither true nor untrue, but there are stages along the path where we have to kind of lock into
Mm,
one of those. So it's like, we
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like we use them as like as teaching tools of
mm.
being like, negating the beliefs that are already there. So if you believe that there's a self, then you get taught that there's no self. That's not true. But then if you get stuck there, that's just the same as believing that I'm a self. So it's like constantly finding these ways to kind of subvert our understanding so that we constantly get left with that no place to stand. And
And
so,
and
I
and
think,
and also constantly question what it is that we think. Because if we land in a boat where we think this is true, there needs to be a question. There needs to be that, are you sure about that? Because there's another little thread lying somewhere around that you can pull. That because there is nothing that can be true
yeah,
in its essence. It can only be experienced in a certain way. There cannot be one truth,
yeah,
that is the truth that we reach. And it's also why the way that we work, and we, like I said, we've been really diving into that one, um that we keep posing the opposite of what you bring to the table.
yeah,
So if you bring to
mm,
the table, that
yes,
there is absolutely no one here, there's no self here, there's no, then we talk about the fifth fetter. Okay, so how did Janice annoy you today at work? Are you sure there's no self there? So what happened in traffic there? Are you sure there's no self
yeah,
there? So we just keep pointing to the opposite for you to snap out of that idea that whatever you believe is true or real is true or real. It needs to be questioned.
right, right. And I do think there's a natural progression, um, that when those four things that you listed, there,
Yeah.
not there, neither there, nor, I
yeah,
think I don't really think the way the human mind works. I don't think, unless you're really exceptional as a person, that you can just throw it all away. I think you kind of have to put it on for a minute or two.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
My thought is, I mean, and you sort of have to wear it and try it on and go, okay. But just like, I think what was happening here is it's just like insights. Like insights get stale over, and sometimes they get stale very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's like watching how quickly that whatever, oh, it's this now, the lens that you're looking at something through, like how quickly it gets foggy,
Yeah.
and then now it seems to be, uh, I think that's the progression for everybody, where where you just can't look through that lens. You might be able to glance at it for a minute or an hour, or roll around with it for a day or so to see if there's some sort of um, juice there, something that needs to be processed. But
Yeah.
then you start just going, nope, 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 and it's like looking for a recipe, and you're like, nope, 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 and you just keep throwing them out.
Yeah.
yeah,
But again, I think you have to. Mostly, I found that I had to grab onto all of them, and it was painful
yeah,
Yeah.
to just go, because you're just coming from a complete sense of lack and um, inadequacy. Like every one of those, I wanted to grab onto, and it just turns to ash as soon as you grab onto it,
Yeah.
you know. And it was so frustrating. Like, this is going to be the one. This is going to be the one. Here's my milestone of completion. Here's my insight of worthiness. This one is going to, create something that's going to make me feel so much better just about walking around and functioning right around
Mm.
Ted.
yeah,
And it never worked out.
But it's also why for us and the way that we teach that we focus so much on the sensory experience. That okay,
Mm,
so how is this felt? How is this felt in the body? That there's might be something, that you think is in a certain way, but that is just thoughts. That's just a cloud. So how does that thought actually feel in the body? Okay, it makes me feel uneasy, like we talked about in the first interview that we had.
mhm,
That when you started to, oh, I can't remember if that was the second. No, it was in the first one, I think. Where you started to work with the sixth fetter, where you dissolve the subject object, and then you start to feel that I cannot dissolve that safety boundary that is between me and everything out there. And that threw you
mhm,
straight back into the second fetter, where it's about, okay, you need to feel into that you are safe here. So back into the body, back into feeling what is actually happening right here. And then you could kind of get your footing in it before you moved on. Um, yeah.
I can tell you there were, although officially, you guys know I don't necessarily do fetter work, but we can put it in that model.
Mm.
What's here is really just has always been an organic feeling through.
Yeah.
Two things. Now we're going to be total hypocrites. This is now we're going to talk about insights and conclusions, right?
Completely.
Let's be
Which is
hypocrites.
so fun to be flexible. It's so fun to be flexible in that you're like, no, it's not, there's no conclusion at all. But also here's this conclusion. Um, is some the if I want to apply it to what I would say the fourth or fifth fetter is, I think the one that one of the bigger ones that happened in between the last time you and I talked and now,
Mm,
right, was based on um, an aspect of the fourth fetter that and fourth and fifth I don't hear talked about a lot. Maybe it is, because I don't sit in those type of sessions.
Yeah.
When I did some work with those and then started to look at stuff through that, desire and aversion, most of those came in the flavor of, okay, I don't like um, external or whatever, or I don't like the way this person did this thing, or I don't like this desire, or I don't want this thing, right? And they all seem to be something that was just one step out.
mm,
And it dawned on me and I think it was really nice that it showed up today in words of there was a desire and aversion that I had a direction I had never looked at. It was the conditioning that was here,
yeah.
not the responses to the conditioning, but like literally
Yeah.
didn't like Ted, the collection of the personality and all the other stuff that was Ted. And I went, oh, that was one of the biggest one. And that's what has felt like it's been falling off. And I went, wow, that was not a direction I
Mm,
thought I would ever look. I always thought it was one step out. Once I was automatically into reactivity
mm,
or in a situation where I either wanted or didn't want something. And that was where we applied the remedy and, the space and the gap and looking at the connection and all that. And I missed the biggest one. I missed the largest one at all. And that specifically came again to be like a broken record from that not good enough, lack of validation. And I went at the time, I really don't like Ted,
yeah.
whatever the collection of all the conditions
Yeah, yeah,
was
yeah,
that
yeah.
I equated as Ted. And we talked about it when we first reconnected again, where I'm feeling the urge to start sharing and maybe start a channel. And
Yeah.
then if you walk past in a mirror and the image, your image of the face, like triggers all of that identity so quickly, and you go,
Yeah.
how could that have any insight? How could that have any clarity? How could that be worthy enough to go out
Mm,
and share, especially in the light of everyone out there that looks like they have it so fucking together,
yeah.
And of course, some of the larger, modern teachers that seem to be pretty well, the Adyashantis and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't want to throw my hat in that arena. And yeah, I would look at my face and go, "Oh, I know what you've done. I know what you've been done."
Yeah.
And it really there was a whole wrestling with it.
Yeah.
And then but it slowly dropped away. And I can't say, unfortunately, that there was a practice that I did,
Hmm.
other than the real basic feeling into it, and when the discomfort and the ick showed up,
Yeah.
um, which I would have told you was gone 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was the deeper ick. It was the sub ick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, um, I would have totally told you it was gone, and I just would sort of sit and feel that, and then I noticed it was just slowly being taken away, taken away, taken away, and I didn't notice sort of till after the fact that was gone, that had been, you guys call it broken, that it was broken. I went, oh, that's odd,
Mm,
Mm.
you know. So, but that was a big one of just, oh, I never looked in that direction.
yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
know how many folks you encounter that are looking in that
Yeah.
direction, because I've heard so much of just this one step out of external reactivity.
No,
You
it's
Look,
know,
so.
yeah. Go on.
Sorry. Well, I was gonna say it's actually so important. We do talk about how so much of what we take to be like the fourth and fifth aversion and craving is really just a distraction from the second fetter issue that's there of either feeling that, ever present feeling of low self-worth or guilt or shame or fear or something like that. So much of our external reactivity and craving are just ways of deflecting from actually feeling and getting in contact with exactly what you got in contact with. So it's
Hmm.
huge. And I always say, like, you know, in the like Kevin Shanelek kind of way of talking about the fetters, you have like the primary sensation that comes up, and then 4 and 5 is really dealing with, like, as you described, that externalization of the reaction. Like you can sit with the ick, and then do you have to jump that gap and actually react in some way, or can you just sit with the ick? But what we're really talking about is that the ick itself, that primary sensation, is coming because of that second fetter issue. It's there because
Hmm.
when you look at yourself in the mirror, there's this feeling of like clenching and disgust and hatred and reactivity and all of that that comes out. That's there first. So that we can address with all the second fetter stuff. And I love that it doesn't have to always be like some complicated thing or some deep psychological dive. It can just be exactly what you said, where it's just like being aware that it's there and feeling it
Mm.
and being with it and
Accepting it's
accepting.
there, and
Exactly.
acknowledge, first of all,
Yeah.
acknowledging that it's there, that when you
Yeah.
pass the mirror and you see yourself and you feel that ick, then you go like, wow, there it is again. And just not analyzing or going intellectual or
Yeah.
therapeuticizing it or anything, it's a word, or anything like that, but just just staying with that ick that is there, that is enough, because that is what we needed back when that ick was initially created.
Hmm.
All we needed was just to be seen and heard and loved for however we were in that moment. If that didn't happen, contraction in the body happened, and that is what we have built the rest of our personality on top. um yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, it's so interesting because even as far along the line as we get, it's like you said, there's that reaction to the image in the mirror that triggers that line of associations. And it's just a line of associations with a bundle of causes and conditions. It's like there
Hmm.
isn't really a standard Ted who is there who has done things. It's like this is like
Right.
causal, but still that association comes in, and that association is so powerful that it immediately triggers those associated feelings in the body, and those associated feelings in the body lead to all these other, those are now the conditions that lead to more and more events in the future that either say, no, I can never be on I can't have a podcast, I can't have a video channel, because that's only coming about because of the causes and conditions. Like, it's all,
Right.
you know, none of it's connect. I mean, it's all causes and conditions, but none of it is like based on a reality of one who is unworthy of having a YouTube channel, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I started it started to dissolve or noticeably dissolve because the last couple of years have been really, all sorts of situations and circumstances have changed, and I've been through all sorts of stuff. But underneath all of that, there was this, and I'll round on the point in a second. I guess I have to give a back bit to it. There was this feeling of being shunted,
Mm.
shunted into, or almost cornered into a now, into a very feeling now,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there was a lot of resistance, and,
Mm.
and well, it was split almost equally. Like there was resistance to it, and also that resignation where you go, know where this is going. And at the time, wherever it was going was okay, you get to just feel it. So that became the practice of just going into it, going into it. And the challenging thing was with having an analytical mind and having spent a number of years in this whole endeavor, in this whole game, and the repetition of forming all of those conclusions.
Mm.
And I don't know how many books I've read. I don't know how many YouTube videos
Yeah.
I've seen, and how many of those have been absorbed, and the ability to regurgitate an answer that's correct and to form that conclusion. And so that had all of this momentum, and that was just really forcibly, I was just squished into this now. And I can remember the body, like I would respond and say, okay, can you really just look at here now?
Mm.
Or I would wake up that morning and like literally almost say out loud, I'm just going to be right here, just this. And that is talked about all through almost anybody's sharing, teaching, speaking, all of that. And it seems remedial, right? But fucking try it.
Yeah.
Don't, it's like, don't, you can't absorb it. It's, oh yeah, all is now. Okay, that's just another conclusion. Really
Yeah.
be there. And what I found, particularly here, was in that now was like, oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff of not letting, that a whole bunch of letting go that hadn't been done before. And this, it was kind of wondrous and horrifying at the same time. You go, oh, it really is just this all the time.
Mhm.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
again, if you just were to write that down on a piece of paper and read it, it would seem like the first step of the first book or video that you ever wrote. And you went, oh, okay, that's fucking easy. That's the hardest one
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
completely.
that's what we're all doing is unraveling all the stuff that stops you from doing that. But
Yeah.
it was like, can I really trust into this free fall? Can I really trust into all of it, all the bills? What am I doing? What am I going to live? Where am I going to live? Who am I hanging out with? How am I going to interact? Can I, what if the dishes don't get done? What if I forget to go to work? What if ad infinitum? So when I was feeling really forced into that, and that stayed there for a while, I go, okay, I'm just going to try to stay here now. And it yielded, again, paradoxical results. It was very nice, felt very, very, very nice. And also, it just completely eliminated any barrier for feeling, or
Mm.
excuse me, for avoiding feeling.
Mm.
Yeah.
There was just you just like, okay, I'm in it. And you get so tired, so exhausted at some point of going, here's my conclusion. Let me see if this will damp this feeling down. Let me see if this is an antidote to the feeling.
Yeah.
And you just know at some point. But even then, even the first moment where I was really like, okay, I'm really just going to feel into this for an extended period of time, not just when I felt like I had the ability or the strength or the quiet time to do it, but like anytime it showed up. Um, it became it can be it was a little bit terrifying. Okay, I
Mhm.
really, 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 really have to see this. So it alternately felt good, but once I got that little muddled. Once there was that, okay, I'm in it. You then want to form the conclusion of, I got it, I overcame it. Now I can just feel if this is making any sense. But that's when it really starts to pick up. Then all the stuff that's just been sort of waiting in line shows up, and then now they're all like, okay, so you're ready to feel me now? Are you ready to feel this one now? Are you ready to feel
Oh, you
this one?
want to
I'm like,
feel?
no, no,
Let
no.
me
But
let me show you
yeah,
what you can
but
feel.
yeah, but right, right. But I figured it out. No, 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 no. You guys go away because I don't need this exercise anymore. I completed the task. So again, that undercurrent of wanting to try to figure it out. So as going back to that, as it was starting to all dissolve after what seemed like forever of just feeling, just feeling, just feeling, just feeling, which still hasn't stopped, of course. I would look in the mirror and it was a stranger.
Mhm.
It just looked like a stranger. It was a familiar shape,
Yep.
and I went, oh, that's kind of weird. And that was that sense of that, all those feelings of how could he share or how could he have any clarity and all of all that massive identification as soon as I looked in the mirror started to slowly go away. But there was that first time I looked in and I went, that's weird. I know that face, but it has nothing to do with what I uh, feel, as in what you take to be the I, or what is
Yeah.
here, or what is now. It's just another image on the screen. That's odd, you know. So
I love that.
Mm.
Yeah. It's really interesting when you start to feel that like that mismatch of like the felt experience versus the associations and versus the visual container that seems to be, that it seems to be in, if we're looking at it in that way. And it's like the more um the more impersonal the experience is taken, like the fewer personalized thoughts that are there, the more it just becomes completely incongruous that you have like that whatever is felt to be like present or alive in this moment has anything to do with the visual container, with that visual
Yeah.
aspect. Like it's just like I point out sometimes that we can do that funny thing where, especially like on a Zoom thing like this, we just associate that, like when I hear you talk and I see your mouth move, that I think that voice and those words are like coming out of your body. It's a computer screen. Like there is no association between that voice and this visual image on the screen. They're not even lined up. Like it's not even properly synced,
Mm.
wise. And it's that same kind of mismatch that's there between the felt experience and the physical appearance when we actually like slow down and observe the actuality of the moment.
Yeah, but we're drawing so many
Yeah.
conclusions, very, very
Hmm.
subtle conclusions that we're not even aware is a conclusion
Yeah.
that we draw all the time. And that is the premise that we are building a conversation or
Yeah.
a life or a friendship or anything on. It's just all of those assumptions and assumed conclusions that we have made
Yeah.
on something.
Yeah.
I mean, this could be three AI character sitting and having a scripted conversation, or it
Yeah.
could just be one of those Siri speaking with
Yeah.
what's the other one?
Alexa.
Alexa.
Yeah.
Siri
Yeah.
speaking with Alexa conversation. No, this could actually be that.
Yeah.
Um, and also, no matter what the three of us are sitting and saying, the fourth person that is here is the person watching, and whatever we are sitting and saying is not going to be heard of what we said, but of what that fourth person here
No.
that we're saying.
Causes and
And that,
conditions are going to allow in at any given time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because yeah, they're going to grab this snippet, and you might go, okay, well, this is a really important thing, or something we all went, we like this, and
the fourth
Right. All
person
right.
didn't
not even
didn't
hear it.
get. No, exactly.
Yeah.
Not related at all. Not
Yeah,
relevant at all.
Which,
yeah.
Yeah.
which again was why I have this, which I would definitely like to cover at some point today, is I have this very rebellious spirit when I'm sharing uh, these videos. It's a little easier to be more contained. It's structured because there's a back and forth here. When it's the videos, it's it's a whole other thing.
Okay,
It's
go
just
on.
even
Talk about that.
um um well uh going to the absolute statements that you see out there, and the rebellious thing. There's a pushback here, a massive one from all of it, and I found that I returned to my affection for the very first people that I encountered in this whole thing, like teachers, speakers, whatever. And that's folks like the old Zen teachers that would smack you with a stick or challenge anything.
Yeah.
Or one of my favorites that I don't hear talked about a lot because he doesn't make people feel good when he talks about it. UG Krishnamurti.
Mm.
And he was just challenged everything. He was a bit fierce, and or when Nisargadatta was yelling at people while chain smoking, and the 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 the, the pushback here was not only as because honestly, I mean, as I started the YouTube channel, what happened was is that my algorithm will send me the few people that I enjoy listening to, right? And then I started it, and it completely shifted my algorithm. And it was all the people that had little tiny channels like me, and then all sorts of other stuff. And it started, and there was a lot of absolute statements being made.
Yeah.
And I really watched them. And some folks to a degree, and then it was as I was searching memory of looking at interviews that I've seen, or people that are talking, or students of people. First of all, you can really tell who they have listened to or who they follow with school of thought by their speech patterns.
Yeah.
And then there's an awful lot of parroting going on,
Yeah.
and which is fine, Um,
It's safe.
but
Yeah.
I resisted that because I went, first of all, I don't think you know as much as you think you know.
Yeah.
You know,
None of
as a
us
matter of
did.
fact,
No, no, none of
yeah,
us did.
I'm right. I'm certain of that. And secondly, there was this, it was wrapped up into three things. The second one was, how much conditioning did I adopt through reading all these books, being another, another avid watcher of all the YouTube videos, and how much did that hinder,
Mm.
in a way? I mean, some of it was very valuable and it was very
Yep.
comforting at the time, but also at a certain point, you have to just chuck it. You have to get rid of all of it,
Yeah,
Mm.
completely.
and there was that need for sincerity and authenticity that was coming up here. And that really opened up the doors. Something shifted where I said, I just don't care anymore in terms of sort of opinions out there, and going, I've had an urge to want to share for forever. Um, but every time, and I made little attempts through the years of trying to sit down and share stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'm trying to sound like Adyashanti. I'm trying to sound like Angela. I'm trying to sound like Lisa
Yeah.
Cairns,
Yeah.
Speech patterns, all of it. And I'm like, I'm not fucking configured that way.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? And
Yeah.
then that's the third thing of that not good enough,
Mm.
Yep.
not being all of that stuff. And that all came to a head. And it seemed like the rebellion of it was sort of like, hey guys, shake it up, shake it up a little bit.
Yep.
Drop it when you're ready. You're going to have to, to whatever degree you do, people are going to have to adopt those to even get it's sort of a trajectory going. But then let it go, and because there's something on the other side of that.
Yeah.
There's something on the other side of just being a parrot, and also, like you said, it's security and safety. You nailed it. Where they're going, okay, and it's not to say that any of those folks haven't had some level of clarity or realization, but this can be shunted at just about any point in the process,
Yep.
right? It can be, you can go, and you can see it, just this comfort thing. And I went, I don't care, I don't care. And so in some of these videos I've shown up and have just been just letting it loose, and going, all right, I understand that this isn't going to be for everybody, because I'm not offering teachings at the moment. I'm not sharing practices. I'm not showing you on the benefits of non-duality or meditation or any of it.
Yeah.
Those words are very cringy at the moment.
Yeah.
Of just like, I know I can navigate through this and share what I'm trying to share with the least amount of jargon possible.
Yeah.
Just enough to be like, okay, this is what he might be talking about.
Yep.
But am I? But are you sure? And so I will go out and sit on this park bench and just have at it. And then afterwards, there's still the little thing of like, oh, usually right after I hit the publish button, I'm like, oh dear, woo, okay, well, it's out there now.
Yep.
But it's so fun and it's so freeing. And I mentioned those 3 points because here, it's a practice for me now.
Yeah.
As well. It's that I'm just going to say what I want to say. There's enough clarity there that I understand that I'm not going to advise anybody to do anything stupid.
Yeah.
So there is something that sort of moderates, to make sure that it's relatively appropriate. Because if it was completely unfiltered, I think I might just stand in front of the camera and scream.
Yeah.
Hey, stupid! But people are all in different spots, and there's all these different types of personalities. So that's why the qualifiers in the beginning of going, this is just a perspective.
Yep.
You don't have to adopt this at all.
Yeah. No,
So that's where that.
I was just thinking of how curious or fun it is that even that is just another display of causes and conditions. The people that are sitting and you can hear Adishanti or Angelo or anybody else coming out of their mouths. What I see when I experience that is that I see that insecure child that needed to understand mom and dad and needed to understand the world to feel safe. And now they have found a spiritual leader and it feels safe because they found out mom and dad know shit.
Yeah.
But that spiritual leader, they know they know everything, and now I'm going to completely adapt, taking all of their teachings on and in and devour all of it, and then I can become like that. It's the only thing I see when people are sitting and talking with words and phrases and jargon and all of that. That is, it's just that, and I have so much compassion towards it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, 1,000%.
in a way, no, but it's because in a way, it's that, like, I'm so happy that you have that feeling of safety, that you have that feeling of coming home, that you have that feeling of a safe place to be, where you can experience and you can express and you can, start to explore your own deception and delusions.
Yeah.
I mean, more power to you. I'm all behind that. And that is a very predictable thing. Just like your reaction is that, okay, I'm now in a place where I got so much footing on my ground that I'm gonna set the entire world on fire, and I'm gonna scream "fuck you" in the camera while I do it. Even that. And again, I just have that so much compassion and love, and like, fucking hell, Ted, here you are feeling that safe. I'm so fucking proud of you.
Yeah.
I'm so fucking proud of you. To be in a position where that is where you can have that rebellious 13-year-old, but in a safe environment because you're there. You got your back. You are the adult in the room while you allow yourself to have that experience. I mean, I'm so proud of you. I think it's so wonderful. So more power to you. Set the world on fire and
It's
scream
it's
in the
it,
camera, and we're
well,
standing on the sideline going, well done.
it seemed a natural progression. I don't have any sense that it's going to be fixed. I've even thrown out qualifiers of like, and this may settle, and you're fine with that. But there's the knowing in the moment this has to come out like this,
Yeah.
because it's fucking blissful.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
there was, and when I had messaged you guys a few days earlier, where I said it all happened. It was like a 2 or 3 day thing. It all happened where there was that energetic pushback before it even got up here to be analyzed or looked at. I went, I think I'm going crazy.
Mm.
Okay. Because it felt very, very unhinged. And then something very rational came in and said, well, let's just double check this.
Mm-hmm.
Do I feel a sense of despair? No. Do I feel like harming anyone else? No. Do I feel self-destructive? No. Do I still feel crazy after all of that? Absolutely. And then I started to examine it, and I went, okay, so, and Todd, you were onto it of like a crazy in viewing it through the lens of the social matrix, the societal structure. And I went, oh, I'm Bellevue worthy. I would love a jacket with long sleeves. But it was also the deeper one, just on a specific level here, is that there was always that soft Teddy, right?
Yeah.
That and I showed up that way, and that type of very sort of gentle, tender expression, and very mischievous, very goofy, very like almost snarky, like the humor all over the place. That always feels very natural, where I'm just having a good time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might be sensitive and quiet, and other times it might just be the court jester. That was repressed.
Yeah.
Parents, society, school, friends, social structures, all of that,
And
then even and then self-imposed repression by watching all the other teachers and like, well, look how serene that guy is.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, got it. Yeah. No, it doesn't feel right. But it wasn't until something just broke, and it felt like there was that opening that I was sharing with you guys about. I'm like, this is my vehicle for sharing.
Yeah.
And then you don't care how it's received. It's nice if people receive it well, but it feels so authentic that you go, this has to be, at least at this point, has to be expressed in this very open, sort of mischievous way.
But it's also, if the concern is how this is going to be received, it's inauthentic. If instead it's like, I'm a bit I'm a bit uneasy about doing this, but I can feel this is right doing this, then you're tapping into all the other people out there that are exactly in the same boat, that are in that mischievous, I do not fit in with a white gown,
Mm,
flowers
mm,
around me. I don't fit in that. Where do I fit? You are a voice and going like, well, over here in the corner, we're sitting and being like us.
Yeah.
Um, so it's I really also think it's that, and I also do think that all the teachers or YouTube channels or whatever you call it out there that are just sitting and regurgitating, that they are trying to find their own way.
Mhm.
You will
mm,
never find your own way through someone else.
No.
That is impossible. It can only be through your own body experience of ick.
Yeah.
You need to dive into that ick.
Yeah.
That when you look in the mirror, you feel you're such a fucking fraud. Okay, stay. I love it. Love it. Stay with that. Stay with that. Do not try to divert. Just stay with that. Stay with that. Because it's that ick that we have suppressed since we were kids. And we just need that just needs a voice.
Yeah.
It just needs to surface. And then we're the adult in the room and going like, it's okay. It's okay. You can feel like a fucking fraud. You can, it's fine. It's fine. I'm here. I'm here. Feel that. And I got your back. That is what we needed.
Yeah.
And that is what we're running from. And the moment we give and meet ourselves with that, the whole structure of an I has space to fall away.
Yeah.
But as
mhm.
long as that is lying and, going like embers under the surface, the eye is not going anywhere.
No.
You're not going to see through anything because it just yells out to be acknowledged. That hurt and that ick just need to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, wow, it nailed it. That was perfect.
No.
And I cannot absolutely say that there was no um, uh, a thought or notion of how this might be received or whatever. So when you said that, I went, yeah, maybe it's a permission. Because when we're all asking questions, to one degree or another, aren't we all asking for permission to let go or to
Yeah.
accept or to, and it was also there was a sense of like, okay, this isn't just for the sharing out there. This is beneficial here,
No, of course.
for
Yeah.
to be to use a very straightforward statement for me for Ted. It was just like, just share it the way you're going to share it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 1,000%. That
Yeah.
was amazing the way you said that.
Well, that.
Yeah.
And we always say we're always guiding ourselves too. I mean, so much of what we do, we're always when we're talking to other people, we're always talking to ourselves.
Yeah.
It's always talking from our own little bubble.
Yeah.
So, but and there is I think a benefit to having people out there who are passing on information that's more cerebral for themselves. Like it's fine that they're doing that, but ultimately you can't get that you have to have in you the clarity of your direct experience in order to really convey it with
Mm.
authenticity and to say something unique.
Mm.
And I love the fact that with your channel, you're not like you said, you're not giving teachings, you're not giving exercises or things, but it's coming out authentically from your direct experience
Mhm.
of how things are. And so, of course, you don't have to like parrot other people to do that because that would be just some cerebral thing that you picked up, and it's not really relevant. Like it's like we've run into all these AI channels
Mm.
recently that are really helpful for, say, taking old Buddhist texts and then disseminating it in different formats so you can hear this stuff and discussed in different ways. And that's great that like the information is getting out there, but you're not really getting anything new or authentic from that AI discussion of something. And that's
Mm.
very similar to what it is to just kind of parrot somebody else. It's
Mm.
like you're taking somebody else's thing and
Insights.
insights and repackaging it
Yeah.
in a way. And so I really think it's important once you have started to have that, there is something just authentically burning to be expressed here, regardless of how it's accepted or,
Mm.
knowing that it's as
Mm.
valuable to you as it's going to be to somebody else. And just to do it, that has so much more impact than just trying to live up to some ideal of well, I think a person should, wear that color and sit in this posture, and their tone of voice should be like this, and they should never use these words, and should always phrase things in a certain way. And maybe I should adopt an English accent. Like there are so many things that we pick up, and so I really love that uh, you know
Mm.
you have that courage to be authentic. And like you had said, it
Mm.
really does come down to having that feeling of safety and that courage to be able to do that, which I think a lot of people just, it takes a long time to get, because you have to have it come from that authentic place in order to get that courage
And
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 that
and and also
feel safe.
another thing that is like a dead giveaway if people are authentic or not is that whenever you open your mouth, you're talking from your own bubble of reality. Whenever I open my mouth, I'm talking about me,
Yeah.
you know? Even when I talk about you, I'm talking about me. Whenever I give an opinion about another person or another thing that I have seen or heard, I'm not talking about what I actually saw or heard. I talk about what I thought I
Yeah.
saw and heard. And a lot of
Mm.
people, they are sitting and talking on their channels, and you can just hear that they're not aware that everything they're saying is a reflection on them.
Yeah.
That every time they open their mouth, they actually talk about themselves
Yeah.
in a way that if they knew, they would be a bit more careful, because there's so much selfing in it. There's such a solid identification with an I, with somebody who knows, with somebody who's wise, and look at me. And in that, it just becomes so um yeah, I see like that, a see-through shallow soap bubble around them that you can just do like poke, and it's just puff, everything is gone. Um yeah, and what I really like about your work and the way that you talk on the channel, it is that you are 100% clear on everything you say and that you perceive and think is, it's only a reflection of you. It's
Yeah,
not a
yeah,
reflection
1 billion%. Yes.
exactly.
Mhm.
It's not a reflection of you knowing, or you being in at past the goal line, or you being elevated into something bigger. It's really completely down to earth, seeing that everything I'm telling you, it's how it looks through these eyes,
Yeah.
in this
Mm.
biological being, with these causes and conditions, with this nervous system, with this endocrine system. This is how it is experienced here, and I'm happy to share.
Right
But
now.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right now.
In this moment.
Yeah, but I'm not holding any truth for anything.
Yeah.
And I really, really like that. That is one of the things that I really, really value about your channel. And also, like you say, you're a very new channel. A lot of new channels, they are puffing up because they believe they need to be something else than what they are, which just creates that soap bubble around them with mirrors on the inside reflecting, themselves.
I mentioned it to you when we first talked again. You could see it. It's like they're giving themselves advice. They're giving
Yeah.
yesterday's them advice or last week's them
Yeah,
advice,
totally.
and there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that. It's actually very sweet. It's
it is.
as if they've just kind of went aha, and then they
Yeah.
go, and here too. Also, it's giving permission. If I'm going
Yeah.
out unhinged and telling other people you need to be unhinged or just share authentic. Oh, are you kidding? Giving myself permission to do that.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
And you see it and you go, okay, I'm very aware of it and I have like zero problem with it. You just go, okay, yeah, because this is, you know, just another part of that, um, the reconciliation, the redemption of the personality, so that it can, if it's not, I know Pranilla, you're on this type of thing a lot of the where it has to be seen and felt and identified first, and then you move it out. And so it feels like a version of that where you go, yeah, I have to embrace it all and go,
Yeah.
okay, and you give it the love and the acknowledgement and the little pat on the head, and you can send it along its way. But I couldn't do that until there was this, and of course it had to be some big thing of like, let me just put that on the interwebs
yeah.
because the personality here. Um, but it's very liberating. You just go, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna let everybody have it, you know. So
It's so helpful though that you are aware when you are giving yourself guidance, yesterday's Ted guidance.
Oh, sorry.
Because, like it's that thing where we use every moment for some sort of, insight. And it's like,
Hmm.
it is great to do it because you're aware enough to recognize that you're doing it. I hope everybody has that kind of level of insight because there is so much to be learned there, all the time. I mean, we should, like, I hear myself doing it all the time. I'm always hearing that,
Hmm.
it's so interesting when I have like back-to-back sessions with people and everybody seems to have like the same issue that day. And it's like, okay, maybe, but I think there might also be something else for me to for me to look into that day. Because there's a
You can
weird coincidence, yeah.
there's a feel that comes through the collective, right? You can see, if you want to call it, that's the only word I
Yeah.
can think of.
Yeah.
It's thematic. There's always a theme,
Yeah, yeah,
for the week or
completely.
something like, oh, so that's coming up.
Exactly.
Um, what I saw was seeing, and of course it's absolutely relative to what's to the movements happening here. Was this is a lot of like, it's like discarding some of the old stuff, like, I feel like it's bound to evolve, just like it's, even though it always comes back to the same core essence, the method, the delivery, where some of that older stuff, if you listen to really, really old videos or really read really, really old books, sometimes it's not necessarily, say, culturally relevant, or or something's very heavily structured. I've listened to a few folks where it's very chaotic. It's anarchy. It's a little bit of, and then they tend to be younger than the three of us,
Hmm.
where they're looking at it from a whole different gig, and they haven't been steeped in the decades of seeking or study or whatever, and they're going, okay, that's all great, and they give the formal non-duality and teachings and all that. They kind of give it their due and go, but if you're ready, the wise ones are saying, if you're ready, let's just get rid of all of it.
Yeah.
Just chuck it out the window, because it's just going to be another structure.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what's shown up here. There's a just in case anyone's listening, I wouldn't mind if you guys are okay with this. The two folks that are really on my radar now. Have you
Mm.
guys seen Suzanne Chang?
Yeah.
Yeah. She pretty. I really liked her model. She really lets it all hang out.
Yeah.
Just.
She also has a way of talking to a younger audience. We usually talk to Gen X audience,
Or
or
Yeah.
yeah.
but she has a really good way of talking with millennials and
Yeah.
yeah, and younger. So that I really see, it's also why I can have so much comfort in the future
Mm.
and the younger generation, because they start out at a completely different starting point that we had when we started out. I mean,
Mm,
we started out, in libraries with the
Yeah.
sutras. I mean, go
right.
fucking love
Hmm.
with that.
Yeah.
Now you have someone like Suzanne that is just like so clear
Yeah.
in her experience and very, very authentic in her experience, and it's just very relaxed when she's sharing, which I really really appreciate. Yeah.
I was really struck by the ability that she has to hold space for people.
Mm.
Mm.
That one really, because I found myself listening, and anytime someone would share something, the analytic mind, the know-it-all mind would go, "Well, here's your solution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's
Oh, the wise one,
you know,
Ted.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, or I'm mansplaining something even worse, right? Well, let me
Yeah.
tell you what you need to do, or here's your answer,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we just sit there quietly, oh, that's really good. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Taking notes,
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and it's just again circling back to the qualifiers, which is why I'm thinking a lot of the qualifying statements, because to a degree there is, there's still value in structure, and there's still value in meditation, and there's value in laying out 10 fetters, and there's value with, communities and all of that. So it's not a blanket get rid of all of it. I
Oh.
think it has to come at a certain point.
Yep.
I
No,
don't,
it's
because if you
just
just adopt it on day one, then you're just going to go out and rob banks or do whatever.
no, but it's not giving up. It's not giving up any of that. It's just letting go of the assumptions about what that is.
Mm.
That it's
Mm-mm.
not about giving up the community or giving up, your family or your job or anything like that. It's just giving up the assumptions of what is community, what is family, what is my job, what is it's all those assumptions about that we are dropping. We're not dropping life. We're just dropping the assumptions about life. And in that there is so much freedom because anyone can express themselves openly, and I have no knowledge of how that is experienced on your end. So it's just curiosity to what your experience is, which just creates so much freedom
Mm,
for everyone. So it's not really that there is any risk with anything because nothing is really going away.
Mm.
It's just the
right,
assumptions and the attachment to it that is dissolved. That knowing
right.
of what that attachment is or what that experience is dissolved.
And all the paths, all the spiritual paths, like they're fine as long as we acknowledge that they're just tools.
Yeah.
That there's no inherent truth in any of them. That there's no inherent, because I start with this path, I have to maintain that one for the
It's
rest of my
just a
life or
tool.
something. It's a tool. You get out of it what you can. You find what works for you. If it doesn't work for you, there's a whole toolbox of other tools out there. You try something else.
It's why I really like the raft
Yeah,
from Buddhism
yeah,
that you use it as a raft to get to the other side of the shore and then you leave it there. You
Mm.
don't carry around with the raft,
yeah.
as if the raft is important at all. It was only useful to crossing the river, getting to the other shore. And then there's another tool. Then there's
Exactly. And it's kind of like, you're trying to, it's probably a bad metaphor, but it's like you're
Go on,
trying
babe.
you're building the house of your enlightenment. You need like all of these different tools. And actually I think probably what's a more apt metaphor is you're deconstructing the house of the self. And in order to deconstruct the house of the self, you have to sometimes use a hammer, sometimes you have to use a saw, sometimes you have to use a crowbar. There are all these different things that when you get to a certain point, you pull out a different tool and you use that. And then when that one's no longer, then you use a wrench. Like
Mhm.
and eventually when there's no house left, then all the tools are moot, you give them away.
Mm.
I was going to say if it was the House of Enlightenment, then you burn that motherfucker
Yeah,
down.
exactly. I realized we were going the wrong direction there.
I was waiting. I was like, oh, I'm gonna pounce on this one. Like you need a
Completely.
gallon of gas and a match.
Exactly, standing with the match on the side,
Look,
just waiting for Todd's house to be fully filled.
Yeah.
I knew
Oh,
it.
Todd, that's
It was
Todd.
coming up. It was a flawed metaphor. So
Yeah, we're like, get him, dogpile.
saved it.
You did. You did.
I could say something that, if I might, I could say something that's an emphasis here, and I don't think it's a skill that you can develop. I think it comes naturally, and I didn't have it for a long time.
Mm,
But in half the stuff that I'm sharing, I'm laughing,
No.
mm,
and um, there's that magic thing that happens when you stop taking this whole thing seriously.
yeah.
I mean, but obviously you can't just go, okay, I'm not going to take it seriously anymore. It's done for you. It happens. It just happens. But when that switch happens, and then you can really start to see the human condition,
Mm,
and you just start laughing at all the dumb shit you do every day or the way you say stuff. And it's funny and it's laughable. And when I feel like when that is applied here, then you the chance for judgment of other people and the chance to like just is so dramatically reduced, and then it's like a domino effect, and that
mm,
reduces the reactivity that you might have towards your external circumstances.
mm.
No.
But I found I couldn't laugh at a lot of that stuff while all of that trauma was sitting there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so it's like this, I see practices in cultivating compassion, and I kind of go, it might be effective, but realistically, the cultivation of compassion doesn't start with going externally and going, okay, I'm going to feel better about you or send you love or whatever. It has to do with unpacking stuff here. And then
Yeah.
the more you see through all of your own, like, wow, I'm just flailing around with no idea what's happening. And then you start giving yourself all the passes, okay, and you start loving those and all the things that you saw the body do over the years and years. When that really settles, then it seems to be a very natural thing to go and see other people. And you just can't really judge them. there's just no way to really judge them. But I'm sorry, I'm off on tangent number 4, but more just laughing at stuff, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
so freeing just to
yeah,
go. That was me. I did that. I'm an idiot, and,
yeah.
and you don't really feel like you're an idiot. It's just funny, you
Yeah,
know.
I once had a teacher that said that if you can't laugh about it, there's an issue you need to look into. And I really,
Hmm.
really have taken that, to heart, that if I cannot laugh and also just look at your life. I mean, if there are issues about your life that you cannot laugh about, then work more with it. There's something nested there that needs your compassion, love, and kindness, and then you can come on the other side and laugh at it. And it's like that. If we're taking ourselves so seriously that, and we're back to sitting in the white robe with the roses around us, being a guru and all that, that if you're taking yourself that seriously, you really need to, yeah, pillow fight or something. You need to, yeah, to look at what it is that is holding you st in that stuck pattern of an identification of a you.
Oh,
Sneeze?
oh, I hate that.
Pick it up.
Like it was, damn it, I lost it. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow.
It's
Uh,
okay. It's okay.
so when we were talking about just sort of things that had happened here, there's some stuff that comes up right now that seems to be that was very important, that was very hard to go through. Um, and it was someone else's video that had triggered it, and I realized it had come up at just the right time. Of now we're into, and I'm into a totally serious topic here of the sense of feeling alone, right?
Mm,
And we all hear it. Of you're gonna do this by yourself. You're alone in this, and that can relate to not being able to connect with people around you, which is what I think I did for a long time. I need to be
mm,
seen. I want you to be seen. I need to be heard. I need to be felt, especially in talking about this, because you can't just obviously can't just walk around and tell the guy at the grocery store start talking about this stuff. They're going to lock you up or think you're crazy. But what and that definitely carried a like this whole time some of my resentment has been okay. So I guess I'm going to finish this journey on my by myself, but I won't shut up to other people about it because I don't want to be here by myself.
mm.
I need to take somebody with me, right? And that was really challenging. And then it went another level where then you go, oh, and you like see as in you are sitting there talking to somebody and you go, there's nobody there and
Yeah.
there's nobody here. And when it's talked about, most of the time I've seen it spoken to from people who have been in that spot for a long time. And so they're into that sense of freedom and openness about it. But here, when it first started to show up, it was like beyond, there was no sense of freedom in it. There
Mm,
was no, oh my God, there's nobody here. This is just amazing. It was the deep sadness and like grieving the loss of the entire world,
yeah.
friends and partners and relationships and all of that. And I don't know, Pernilla, maybe with your and Todd, with your experience of how different personality types react with that. I have heard tales of folks that find that extremely freeing at first. And then I wonder if it's as folks that have experienced all the trauma where you go, fuck, I made it, but I'm all by myself. And then it was a sadness it felt like just months of just quiet grieving,
Yeah, yeah.
of just carrying around being sad. And since I'm already into that shunted place, there was no other choice other than to look at it and just sit there and just go, I just feel alone, you know,
Yeah.
and sort of comforting, but more of just a tremendous loss,
Yeah.
you know.
But it's what we talk a lot about in the mind body integration part of the awakening curriculum, where we look into the different developmental trauma and distress that we have had from the second trimester until we're 12 years old. Because from the second trimester to we're 3 years old, that is when the HPA axis in the brain is built, which is our foundation for our nervous system, which means that the way that your nervous system is today was created pre-verbal. You were in the womb and you were 3 months up to 3 years old. And in that period, the way that you react, the way that you perceive things. So if you, for example, a year old and you're lying in bed and you're crying and it's dark and you're afraid, but mom and dad, they're sitting and watching TV, so they can't hear you. They love you. There's no trauma or anything dysfunctional or anything. They just can't hear you. You're lying in there alone and you have an experience in your body that is bigger than that little nervous system and that little brain that is so recently born can deal with. And in that situation, we can only do one thing, and it is to maintain the relationship with mom and dad, with having a safe haven, having a safe foundation. We need to leave this feeling that I have here, this bodily sensation I have right now of loneliness, of fear, of anxiety, of all of that is coming up. When you're 1 year old, you're lying in a dark room and you're scared. That needs to be left, because otherwise you will go insane. So what we do is we shut off. And when we then are in our 40s and we suddenly start to become intrigued by non-duality and all of these things, suddenly a deep-seated, all of those things are surfacing, because there's nothing that is holding it back anymore. When you no longer can blame other people for how you feel, there's only one way, one direction you can look, and that is at yourself, right? And that means that stuff like that, little Ted lying in bed, 1 year old, and having that feeling of loneliness is surfacing. But since it's pre-verbal, you don't know when it happened. You don't know all the stories. It's subconscious, which means that it's a felt experience in the body. And what we tend to do is that we divert from that feeling, because it feels like it's so big, as if we were 1 year old and this is the entire world. It feels like that because it's nested in the body since then, right? So what we do is we divert with drugs and alcohol and sex and gambling and scrolling and drama and all of those things that we divert with. But when we then start on this path, on the awakening path, there's no diversions anymore, because we know all of that. That is just some creation I just created in my mind. I can only stay with this. The only thing I can do is sit with this feeling of being deeply, deeply lonely, of being deeply, deeply sad. I don't know why. I don't know where this is coming from. And what we do to heal that is that we allow it to surface. We allow the body to feel alone. We allow the body to feel that sadness. And I just stay with that. I'm now the adult in the room. I'm now cuddling up the little 1 year old me that is lying in the darkness and comforting her and saying, it's completely fine. I'm here. You can feel lonely. I'm right here. You can feel sad. You can feel anxious. I'm right here. So you just stay with it. You don't need to know the story, because the story is in the conscious mind. We're talking about the subconscious mind. And the moment you start to create a conscious story about, ooh, that was when I was 1 year old and my mom and my dad and la 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 la, we're back in the mind. We're back in the conscious mind. And that is not where the issue is. The issue is in the subconscious. You need to go back into the body. How is this felt? And when we do that, that complete knot of loneliness that we have is falling apart, because we can finally exhale. We're finally met. I'm finally feeling safe. And things, a feeling that has been in the body for 40 years is suddenly dissolved. It's not an issue anymore. I'm here and I got your back. I'm here. And that is why so many people, they get stuck on the awakening path and they start to spiritual bypass, saying, this icky feeling I have in my body, there's no I, so I have no icky feeling. Da 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 da, sorted. But it's just
Insert eye roll here, you know.
yeah. But it's only because that we have created such what do you call it when you can't talk about it?
Taboo.
And we created such a taboo about how it feels to be in the body. I remember when I started to talk about the self-care for the non-self, people were like, there's nobody, you know, and it's just like, well, you still have a biology, you still have a hormonal system, you still get a knot in your stomach when you hear people argue, you still get clammy hands when you hear a fire shot or fireworks,
Still eat and
you
get
still,
sick. You still shit.
yeah,
Like these things still happen. There's a
Yeah, there we go. I
biological
like
thing
that one. That
here,
was good.
you know?
yeah.
Like,
So it's that as long as you're still in this physical being here, there are things that needs to be taken care of. And what I'm talking about, I just want to make very, very clear, what I'm talking about is not psychology, it's biology. It's how the body, it's
Mm,
physiology, it's how the body is reacting to being alone in a room at night, or how the body is reacting to hearing people arguing, or how the body's react. It's the nervous system. It's not psychology, and it's why we can go a long, long way with talk therapy. But at some point, we need to land in our body, and we need to allow the body to experience and express all the things that is bottled up in it. And it's what we're doing with the mind-body integration part of the awakening curriculum.
well said. Yeah.
can I just throw in one?
Uh,
Because that,
Absolutely.
sorry,
Please. Yeah.
that was so amazing. I was just gonna say one thing that I love your what you did to get into that where it brought you back to having to feel that was like a perfect metaphor when you had that idea that I am all alone. You know, it was like that morning that you talked about was like the metaphor that you needed to get back to that thing that needed to be felt that you were just talking about. But it's also really interesting to recognize when that's happening. And again, I'm glad that you didn't, because that might have bypassed, you know, what the work that you got to do. But it's also just important to recognize that any of that idea that we have that, like, oh my God, all the people who I love and all that don't exist, that's still just the mind,
Mm.
right? For there's two things. The first thing is, oh my God, I'm all alone, nobody exists. That's positing that there's still somebody here that does, that's now all alone, separate from everybody else. So that tends to be like this little unseen kernel. And then there's also the um on one level of experience, we can say that nobody really exists. That you know, my family, my friends, my loved ones, all of them, they don't exist the way that I used to think they did. And you can have that experience where it's like, oh my God, there's nobody in there. But when you do that, you also have to recognize that it's always been that way. They haven't just died.
Mm,
So that means that those levels of relationships that you have had are still perfectly valid on that level of reality. You know, it's that whole thing of not getting locked into any level of truth or belief in truth that, oh, that person is really my mother and she is the way that I've always thought she is. Okay, oh my God, there's nobody in there. She's not my mother. Okay, but that's not truth either. You know, both of these ways of coexisting are there plus others. So it's like, let the insight seep in, let it open up that attachment that you have to a person being a certain way, the way that you thought they
Yeah.
were, that you're defining them as. But then don't get trapped in the I'm now defining them as non-existent, as this like non-playable character or something, because that's also not true.
Yeah. Be
So
comfortable contradictions.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's really that. But again, I say that guardedly or you know measured, because I think it was so good that you had that experience that like, oh my God, I'm all alone, and then having that like morning, because that was something you clearly needed to get into for completely, you know, that would have come out in some other way had that not been the thing. So
it seemed like if it had been responded to in a different way, there would have been a subtle permission to be dismissive
yeah,
to whatever
yeah,
was happening in front of you.
yeah,
And then that is the larger exaggerated one is what Pernilla said when people responded to you when you started sharing that way of the hiding in that little nook, that little corner, going, "There's nobody here."
yeah, yeah,
Like they can't do that either.
no,
No.
no.
Like there's no escape.
No, but it's almost every day that I get comments on the channel of, but there's nobody here. You know, who are you talking to? There's nobody here. And
the,
it
the
is,
one who just wrote that comment,
yeah,
like
exactly.
there's someone who got offended by it or bothered by it enough to take the time to type a comment into a YouTube
Exactly.
thing. That's who we're talking to, you know?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, just fire back with who are you talking to?
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
comment sections are golden. You know, they really are. Sometimes they're
Yeah.
fun, and sometimes they make me a little sad, and other times I'm like, how many times I've deleted my own comments too, and like, oh, I'm just really reactive right now. You know, I'm either
Yeah.
going to tell you what it's like or tell you what you said was wrong.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
you can just see that there's that.
I'm normally just asking, I'm talking to the one who's paying your taxes.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, that's where I won't call it the rebelliousness anymore. Actually, I was messaging a friend, the guy that we're going to do those tea sessions with, and I came up with this funny label, and it's just a label. I'm like, I'm a loving agent of chaos, and I said it, and I'm like, that's amazing. There's the at any point in time, there's that challenging sense, but there's when it comes from here. I mean, I don't know if it comes how it comes across because I'm not the other people watching it,
Yeah.
but there's so much love in it, and there's like a smirk and a grin of like it's okay, but also poke, poke, poke. You know, a real like, are you sure? And you know, of course, it's known that some people are not ready to be poked, and that's
Yeah.
fine
Yeah.
too. You know, but so I don't run around challenging people all day long. I used to, and with disastrous results every time. You know.
No, but
Um,
it's also about
but
the intention.
if I see an opening, I'm gonna get in there and real
Yeah,
lovingly though, and just go,
yeah.
hey, hello.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but but it's also about the intention, right? Because if you're poking to provoke, there's a very
Mm-mm.
vicious underlying incentive to do it, If you provoke for people to question, then they can question, and if they don't like that you're poking them to question, then it's okay for them not to like you, you know? So it's also about the incentive
Yeah. Yeah.
of why we're doing like the way that we're doing, because
Yeah. Yeah.
we're three very, very different people on our channels, the way
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
are on our channels.
Completely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think along years ago, I mean up until more relatively recently too, there was if it came across as real arrogant, um, I because I'm watching a video, I had no direct interaction with somebody, and I wouldn't leave a comment, but there was a definite like there was that intention of like, oh, I'm gonna take this motherfucker down a peg. You know, thankfully that never really manifested. I did it. I did it one time to a few years back to one teacher and just blasted him privately via email. And would I do that again? No. But there was this. I saw some tremendous inauthenticity and a huge amount of followers, and I'm like, this just won't stand. This just came out right. Um, but that was probably the one exception to the rule. No, it really is. There's a sense of when you see that of something saying you don't need that guardedness for the person that's presenting that defense of a concept or an idea, especially if it's a spiritual one. This isn't needed. And when you're ready, you will. You're still safe if you drop it. You don't have to hide behind that defense.
Yeah,
Poke,
but
poke,
but I
poke, poke.
but I also see that there's a spot for everyone.
Mm,
There's a spot for everyone. There's always somebody who resonates with with a message, and it's why we see that everybody has followers. Everybody has, no matter how authentic or inauthentic they have followers, because they're
mm,
talking to somebody. And my opinion about that says nothing about that person. It only says something about me. That there's
yes.
nothing that can poke, and anybody. I can only poke at myself. That email that you wrote to that spiritual leader was not to that spiritual leader, but to you. That is a
Mm,
message to future Ted when he has a YouTube channel and is talking about, that was a message to you. Because
yeah.
if that teacher has a lot of followers, then there are a lot of people that resonates with the message, no matter how
Mm,
inauthentic it is. But sometimes the uncomfortable um, truth is not nice, and you rather want to hear a comfortable lie, and people go for the comfortable lie. And I
mm,
completely get that. I completely understand that, and I won't say I support that, but I understand that with so much compassion and understanding, because I have been there. I completely remember that I just needed something so the world felt safe, because I was so
Mm,
unsafe in my own skin. So I completely understand it. There's nothing wrong with inauthentic teachers until the point that they start to get grandeur and taking advantage of people and are creating more
right.
suffering than what they should.
Yeah, yeah, because
Engaging with students and stuff
Yeah.
like that, that's not,
yeah,
that's off.
yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Pernilla, you are I just say this one thing. Sorry, Todd. I have to
No,
say
no, you're fine.
you're a tremendous, what's the word? Tempering influence. We'll temper this stuff. And you've done that since day
What's
one. I really like
what
that.
is tempering? Thank you. I
You,
don't know what
you,
tempering is.
Uh,
yeah, like
Todd, you want to take this
Like
one?
second language
cool,
here.
cool down the like if something is too hot, you kind of cool it down. If there's like, kind of like mold it and yeah, like
Thank
kind
you.
of rein it in a little bit and kind of make it more.
Thank you. I think.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I still want you to be you,
Yeah.
standing with the match, you know?
Uh, oh yeah, yeah, no, 1,000%. I actually, I relish it too. There's also, it's the same thing. There's still the challenge there, because you're like, okay, maybe, but can we tweak this just a little bit? And you go, oh, she got me. Oh, I was hiding out there, wasn't I? So I hated it at first. Absolutely. Did I tell you that story when I first saw videos of you in the beginning? And I was
No,
like, before we met anything,
no.
um, massive reactivity. I was like, who's this broad, lecturing me and telling me, and I was like, it was like a school teacher telling me I'd done something wrong and I hadn't done the homework correctly.
Yeah.
It had to have been a year before I ever actually
Yeah.
connected. And then you showed up in the groups, and I'm like, but it was that
Okay,
knowing of
you
like,
see it.
well, it was just the knowing of like, it's just that sense of like, you're not going to be able to get away with anything.
Yeah.
There's just no. So now it's totally welcome. But at first I was like, God
I love that. I love
damn.
that. And then
I
then look at the relationship we have today.
exactly.
That's amazing.
I didn't know what to make of her the first time we met in the Fetter Free group, but here we are. So she has a way of winning people over.
That's great. That's great. Okay, this is an interview about Ted. Let's get in that
Oh
direction.
no, it doesn't have to be. Not even a little bit. It can just go down as a chat too. I love it.
I love you.
Thank you. I love you too. Thank you.
Okay, stop. Too far. Okay, that's enough.
We love you too, Chad.
Yeah, we do.
I'm like, all right, the way I draw the line right there. It's mushy. I
Yeah.
do like the way you guys are doing the community. Um, in this 2 year, and because I've been in the Discord, I don't really say a whole lot. I just kind of watch, you know. Um, and it's inevitable that there's for me with that radar on, there's that, looking for the authenticity, looking for
Yeah.
I
sincerity,
love that. Yeah, yeah.
and and that I mean, you can't really remove that at a certain point, right?
Mm,
But just watching the way the group unfolds um, has been really refreshing. Just to kind of, like you said, just lurk in the background a little bit and sort of
yeah.
spectate and really just enjoy the dynamics. And there's new people coming in, and they seem to be they feel very safe. And then sort of the OGs are out there, just kind of encouraging and pointing and guiding. And so
It's really, really
in
wonderful.
in the what happened after the when I first stopped talking to you guys, there was a decided sense of having to leave all of the communities.
Mm.
Um, and there was some stuff that was sort of attached to that, but um, it seemed it seemed necessary that I'm being very very paradoxical here, and one of just singing the praises of the community and going, I wonder how many folks get to that point where I like I had to go out on my own,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
had
We
to
see that
just
a
like
lot.
really go out into the wilderness where you're just like I'm you know, I don't want any teachers. I don't want to, for God's sakes,
Yeah.
don't give me any advice. Don't
Yeah.
tell me what to do about this. Let me just slug this out, even if I do it the wrong way, or go around backwards the wrong way to get to get to where I'm trying to go.
Mm. Yeah.
Um,
We see
I
that
mean,
a
absolutely
lot.
necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. I really think it's a way of experiencing maturation, when you become mature, where in the beginning you have that need for community and that need for feeling that somebody has your back, and then you start to realize, oh, I have my back, and then you're going out, leaving the family and going out on your own, and it's like, that coming of age experience. So we see that a lot in the community, and then a year passes or 2 year passes, and then people are back in, and they are coming back with so much, insight and knowledge, and have experienced so many things, and so many things have fallen into place, and they're completely landed in a completely different place than where they were when they left the community. So we see that a lot. It's
Mhm.
like a family where you're growing up, and then you're leaving the family and the town that you were in, and then you eventually come back again.
Mm.
Yeah, we see that a lot.
Yeah.
It's really, really lovely.
Yeah.
And I just want to circle back to that. I really, really like that poking that you have, that constantly seeking for the authenticity in people, because
Yeah.
again, it's what you need to feel safe in your life. You need to surround yourself with
Mm,
people that that when you poke, they're not opening up in the sides, that they're really solid, and you can poke all you want, and they're just authentic in it, and it's just laughing about it. It's not taking anything against you or anything like that. That's what you need to feel safe. So obviously that is what you should keep doing and going for.
And honestly, I mean, in the spiritual environment that we have, it is really relevant to always keep a little bit of a skeptic's hat on,
Yeah.
because there are people out there that
hmm
are maliciously inauthentic. There's one thing about just being somebody who's kind of, like we talked about, developing and kind of parenting, and they haven't found their authenticity yet. They haven't had that experience. But there are other people that are just out there to manipulate and scam and take advantage. And so it's always good to
Yeah.
actually have that discernment in this community, because unfortunately it's not a unique,
It,
universally safe place.
yeah.
We do see so many people who get taken advantage of and find themselves in cults and guru situations and things like that. That
Yeah. Yeah.
they're
Narcissists
just
do exist out there.
absolutely.
Yeah. And
And
and and there and there is
politics and the spiritual movement are like two very, very big places that narcissists get drawn to.
yeah.
So
and it's, you know, the language is so easy to hide behind too,
completely.
right?
Yeah, but also because
You
we
know.
we we have so much tolerance and acceptance
Yeah.
for other people, that when somebody then does something that is off, it's so easy to say, but that was just your experience.
Yeah.
It wasn't me. I didn't do anything wrong. You experienced it. You should find out why you feel like that. And that just gives that narcissist a complete free range to do whatever they want to do, because they can always put that bubble of that is your bubble. I
Yeah.
didn't do anything wrong. That is your perception of it, and just you know
Yeah.
putting it back to the other person. And they do exist. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
That's okay.
I
We'll
think it's
keep
find
poking.
generally always a good idea to be.
like we'll find them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
find them and poke them.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you know, there. I mean, there has been, you know, since that one email that I sent. This was years before I even met you guys. That there's been the temptation here and there, but then you just go. There's also, after a while of settling into it, there is that sort of challenging. First of all, when it does show up, it's very lighthearted. It's very kind of mischievous, you know.
Yeah.
But also there's that discernment of, you know, you go, why? Like there's no need to poke.
No.
You know almost instantly that you're going, I'm going to get into a Facebook debate that's irrelevant, and everyone's going to flex how much, you know, how non-dual they are, and you just go, okay,
Yeah.
you know, I'm going to go. You go ahead and be over there. I'm going to go over here being completely identified. You know, I'll be having milk and cookies. What are you doing? You're still typing and fuming.
Yeah.
So you just leave it alone. You know.
Yeah.
So I guess the point is there's that discernment after a while of just there. It seems to be very clear how and where you can poke, and it's always just little doink, and you see some reactivity, and you go, oh, okay,
Mm.
no problem. It's not my job to do that.
No.
It's just sort of the spirit of what shows up. But
Mm.
because underneath the poke is like, hey, when you're ready, we don't have to take any of this seriously.
No.
Because then all the projections about how we should appear, do I need to be doing this correctly?
Mm.
It's almost like an invitation, very convoluted, I guess, into it's safe to be vulnerable. You
Mhm.
can
Yeah.
be there, sort of warts and all. You can just be all the gooey mess that you want to be.
Yeah.
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 I wouldn't say that's a blanket thing that I think folks should just start doing. Um, but there are pockets of people where that's possible. I
Completely.
definitely felt that with you guys, with the community. Um, so that's why if we remember the one conversation where I had to turn off the
Yeah.
recording and just let it all hang
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh,
So for people who wants to find you, can you give a bit of a plug of yourself? Okay. You can go you can if you want to learn more about Ted, you
I
can
would,
go
but there's
to
nobody here.
you can go to the Tao of Bees.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, and when you hear it spelled Tao, it's actually Tao, of bees.
I'm gonna
So
yeah.
Beeze.
Yeah, I'm
No.
gonna
Yeah.
put
yeah.
the ad in the description of this video so people they can find you. Are you anywhere else? Do you?
Mm, no, not
No.
yet.
Okay.
There was, yeah, just a quick comment on that. There was
Yeah.
a TikTok channel that I started, and then I have Instagrams for my work and all that. And I felt like this was sort of just a clean break. Like I was
Mm,
gonna put it out there to the TikTok channel, and I went, let's let this just be its own thing,
yeah.
Yeah.
sort of a line, and then rather than trying to go out and grab more folks, let's just see who shows up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just at the moment it's just relatable content. If I had to spell it out in words, it's relatable content that says, oh, I might have gone through that. Oh, it's okay to let it all hang out.
Mm,
Oh, it's this process can be very, very messy. There's not really any teaching, so it's just a permission. It felt like
yeah.
not only for me to continue expressing, but for others to express in their own way of just like, well, he's doing it. Well,
Yeah.
maybe it's safe for me to do it too. And
Yeah.
that was the whole essence of it.
Yeah. And how can people get in contact with you? Do you have an email address that people can?
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
um it's on the whatever the preloaded word text
Mhm.
things
Yeah.
that show up on every video. It's right at the top.
Okay,
Okay.
okay,
Perfect.
good. Because
So
I have had I have had people writing me where I have sent on the conversations we have had, and I have sent them on to you, and you've been
mhm.
so good at picking people up and supporting and helping, and it's usually guys that is, seeing themselves mirrored in your story and in your experiences and are struggling with same issues that you have been struggling with. So I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a niche. I don't see a lot of me looking folks out there, and it doesn't
No.
No,
have to be
no,
exclusively
no.
for that, but more.
The amount of um what do you call it? Pre-prison, no, people that have been into prison, heroin addicts, tattoo artists in the non-duality scene. I think it's narrowed down to one.
Oh, sweet, cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
think it's just you.
that's the
cool.
thing is that
Yeah.
none of us are unique. That there are so many people that share similar
Yeah,
experiences, and it's really helpful to see I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, but how helpful it is to find somebody who mirrors back to you experiences that
yeah,
you've had and who speaks the language that resonates and you kind of jive with, and there can be that hearing somebody else who's just like what you ran into with I need to look like that in order to be able
mm,
to do this. That's only set up because we're only seeing this one artificially manufactured view of what it looks like to be awake or what it looks like to be.
Mhm.
And we need more people who look different because we're all fucking different. Like that's not a thing. It's just an artificial construct that you should look a certain way
Yeah.
in order to be awake. It's bullshit. So I love that, like, you're just looking like you, and
Yeah.
that's what it looks like to be awake. Like it's what it looks like to be on the path. It's there's no definition of that outside of our own, you know, artificial constructed concepts that's just been kind of passed down in the zeitgeist. But this is much more authentic to actually have everybody being represented, because everybody is, you know, capable.
Mm.
It's for everybody. It's
Yeah,
not just for people who look and talk a certain way or
but it's also why
whatever
you are
else.
very open about your past history
Yeah,
with anxiety and
yeah,
suicidal ideation and depression and
yeah.
ago,
Agoraphobia.
agoraphobia and all of that. You're very, very open about that. I'm very open about my autism and the way that I am in the world, and I really think it's the way forward just to be ourselves, so people they can see themselves in it. And the funny part is that when you are fighting who you are, you're fighting for the self. You're fighting
Exactly.
for that self to be maintained instead of just
Mm,
really acknowledging, but there is no self. There's a
That,
bundle of chemistry here.
yep,
And in my instance, there's a neural pathway that is in a certain way. And that's just how it is. There's no identification with it, but it's just how it is.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it really does reinforce that I am wrong because I look like a certain way and I don't
Yeah.
look like that. And it just reinforces that sense of the self
Yeah.
who needs to be different in order to be okay.
Yeah.
Instead of just like meeting, it's almost like having that direct reflection of that person looks like me or has similar experiences. They are empty and awake and okay. I can then become empty and okay and awake through that
Yeah.
meeting of that, you know,
Yeah.
of
mhm.
that
So this
equality.
needs to change and then I will be
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
That is just
So
a
Right.
reinforcing that the
yeah,
selfing. Yeah.
I
so
mean, my very first teacher said it, and it took years for it to settle. Is that there's room for everything, and I
yeah,
was having a very angry moment. Couldn't get through it, but years later, you went. It doesn't look like anything, and there's room for all of it.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
I love
love
that.
that. And also we just we reify so much of not only the self but of the the good and the bad and the ideas of, you know, worthiness and redeemability and, you know, value, and all of that stuff is built into how we judge our narratives, you know. And it's like every bit of that is just reinforcing that sense of self and the sense of my morality and my judgments and my expectations and all of that stuff are taken to be real in some way. And now I'm going to constantly weigh that against what I see in other people. And I'm constantly comparing myself and my attributes and my story against other people to determine my my goodness, my okayness, my
worthiness,
worthiness.
even, yeah.
Exactly. And it's just it's such a like toxic trait that we all have, where we're constantly looking at ourselves against other people.
Mm.
And so having that where only one particularly curated version of what it looks like to be awake is out there, it is so unfair to the most of the population
Mm.
that doesn't look like that carefully curated image. So they're always
Hmm.
weighing their own, saying, "Well, I don't live up to that. I don't live up to that. I must not be good enough."
Mm.
And it's just not. It's not healthy. It's not helpful.
Mm.
So I think
Yeah.
there's really a really a use for everybody, you know, being out there to show that there's nothing inherently real about any of our stories, about any of our the things that we have done or said or any of that, that it's not something that has to define me. You know, it doesn't create the me, it doesn't create my worthiness or any of that. And to really have that experience that this is beyond all of that, that none of that is relevant in that space, you
Mm.
know. And so I love that we're, in doing this, it kind of goes beyond all of that, and it shows that it's just one level of very limited conceptual thinking.
Mm. Love that.
Yeah.
Okay. This was great. Thank you so much.
This was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was going to be a third one after I wandered off into the wilderness. So
Yeah,
this
fourth
Fourth.
one.
Fourth.
Fourth one. This
This
is
is
the
already
third
three.
one.
no, I didn't know if there was going to be this one, is what I was saying.
Oh yeah, sorry, we didn't hear that.
I didn't, I didn't know if there was going to be a third one or not. So
Got it.
to do this, it's like, yeah, this is really good. The
Absolutely.
reconciliation in
Yeah.
its own right. So,
Yeah.
Amazing.
So happy.
Yeah.
So happy to have done it.
Yeah.
yeah, same.
Thank you so much.
And,
Thank you so much.
Look
And
forward to seeing you again soon.
yeah.
Yeah.
See you in a moment.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
Love you guys.
Love
Bye.
you too.
Bye.
Bye.